Here, open ender. Yeah, we have 9 plus. Yeah, just by those odds, we actually make it. But if someone has the nut flush draw, that would not be great. Could be that someone has a set. Probably close. Let's gamble, guys. Welcome back, guys and girls. It's play and explain time, something different. I know we've been doing mainly podcasts, something that I've been really enjoying. If you have not checked out any of the podcasts, you are missing out. A lot of valuable information there. But I figured I'll provide you guys with another play and explain video since it's been a while. Before we start, quick announcement. If you haven't seen it already, Mechanics of Poker coaching program, me and Adam. It's open now. We're taking on new students for, I think, until somewhere in the first week of May. So depending on when you see this, it's still open or not. Click the link down in the description below to apply to the program. Right, one of the most complete poker coaching programs on the market, especially aimed for those mid-stakes players who are trying to make the jump towards higher stakes. Right, go over to mechanicsofpoker.com for more info and click the description below to apply. And maybe we'll give you one of the available seats. Without further ado, that out of the way, let's get into the action. Playing some Zoom. I think I've said before, very easy format to make some videos on. You just press record. You hop in the pool. The pool is actually very small, and I don't know almost anyone. I know 2 guys. Just gonna try to play somewhat solid. Look for weakness wherever we can. Deviate if we think it's appropriate, make more money, but also look for areas of the 3 where I think our opponents will be leaning towards being a bit too strong. They're definitely trying to avoid putting too much money in the pot when that's the case. This hand will sometimes 3-bet, but first a min raise. I think I'll lean a bit more towards calling. Please check on the flop. How much else we can do. Turn is interesting. We will definitely be continuing with a 5. Obviously with a king, obviously with a jack. We have some pairs. Probably this is getting close towards a fold. Very close though. Probably this might even be a frequency call. I don't know really what this sizing is. 62%. It's a bit dicey. Not dicey. I think it can be either medium or weak. So I'll decide to pew this one. River's a 7. Should connect with his range a bit. In terms of 6-7, which I now expect him to check behind. It's a very weak-ish line. It feels a bit like a hand like King 8, which blocks, so that's good. King 9, King 10. I'm curious. King Queen. So here we have the solution for the turn c-betting strategy for in position. You can see the majority of the bets are gonna be an over bet. There are some bets there's some hands that want to bet 3/4, mainly driven by pocket kings, and indeed like a hand like King 10 or I guess King Queen. So in a vacuum, you could say that this hand was played okay because King Queen indeed wants to bet 3/4 at a decent frequency. He even bet it a little bit smaller. I think the smaller you go, the more you just want to check. And you can actually see that also with, for example, I had like King 10. Obviously, King 10 is also a little bit weaker. But the reason why we want to overbet is simply because we have a very big nut advantage. If you look at hands that have 80% equity or more, we have that around 19%, whereas a big blind has that only 8%. So the bottom wants to build a pot strategy around the nut advantage. Therefore, it starts overbetting a lot. We have a lot of hands in the 70-80% equity range, which is going to be a king. And the way 80 to 90 and 90 to 100% equity hands maximizes versus a range that has a lot of 70-80% hands is by doing a lot of overbetting. Okay, so therefore, I think in general you should use a big bet strategy. If we look at the hands that Vin is allowed to barrel, if you look at the draws, take all the draws here. Draws should check 40% of the time. I think in practice it's quite easy to barrel a lot of your draws here on the jack. I think it's a bit more true if it goes 5-3 jack king. I think that's definitely a spot where people would just barrel all their draws. Here, maybe a little bit less, but still, I think this is definitely hands that people are going to find more often than not, which I guess is good for our specific hand. People should also barrel some ace highs. Obviously, the ace 4, the ace deuce make a lot of sense because they're draws. Ace 7 and ace 6, I guess, is mainly with a diamond. So there's definitely the ace of diamonds. I think people could definitely find that. So this is usually something that I look for when I'm in a marginal bluff catch scenario. Like, what are the bluffs? And how likely do I find it for people to find them too often or too little? And usually in spots where people find them too little, it's easier for your goal to be losing. And if you think it's easier that people find them a lot, it's easier for your call to be winning. If you look at 3/4 in general and my specific hand, actually pocket eights with a diamond is actually calling quite often. So at least, it cannot really be a big mistake. Definitely think if you have a diamond, you should not be calling. I also thought in game the 7-6s were way worse, simply because of the 7-6. And what we also saw was the a7 and the a6 barreling quite often as well. Nines actually I thought would be worse than eights, because nines blocks way more hands like queen 9 and 9-10 that people will barrel. So in my head, I was like, okay, eights is actually probably of the pairs. Ace is probably the best. I would never have folded a 5. So I would have definitely overcalled this spot. But then again, I'm adjusting to the sizing that I think is quote less of a thing, and that could potentially be weaker. So therefore, I decided to overcall here with 8s. And then on the river was a 7. As played, I think in position, gonna bet king queen. Actually, he played his hand in a vacuum actually quite well. So shout out to him. It's not really a line that I would have taken. And then I think we have an okay bluff catcher, probably with pocket 8s. No, it's just snap folding and it's calling more of his 5x. Fine. But like I said, in theory, it's a bit like you cannot really look at this in theory, because we were going off an assumption that range is weaker, and sometimes you're wrong, sometimes you're right. Kind of how it works. If you look at in terms of how often he's allowed to bluff, he's allowed to bluff most of the time. 32.8% he should give up his bluffs. And then obviously if you have a bluff catcher, you should then estimate if that's realistic. Like I said, we didn't really know this player. This was just an assumption. I thought it was weak. I called. I was wrong. That's how poker goes sometimes, if you're going into a bit more exploitative territory. Check back here on this board. I'll go for the overbet. On the 5 pairs, not the greatest card. I still think that's like one of the benefits of overbetting ace jack here. He will sometimes call you with ace 7 or like an ace high flush draw, like ace 6 or something. And when we check, he checks behind and we sometimes chop or win. That's why I think ace jack. One of the small additional values of overbetting ace jack there. Go to see bet here with 6s. Definitely not a board that I will see bet at a very high frequency. 7 is quite good for him, and also in terms of connectivity around the 8 and the 3 in the future. Turn, I think we have a mandatory check without a club. Maybe with a club we could sneak in a bet, but I don't think so. Ace king jack, these are boards that are quite favorable for us. And I think we're just gonna bet. And I think when people check here, it's close. I will go for a bet. This is, I think, a bit disrespect to my opponent, maybe. Here we decide to go for a bet. Turn queen. Should be quite even. I think we get to do a lot of betting here. I think I would prefer to have a club, so I would definitely barrel all my pairs with a club. Not sure if this hand would make it. I could be convinced so. I think I'll move this one to a bet check bet instead. But yeah, the reason why I just bet the flop is mainly to sort of keep keep the lead. If you check back, you allow him to bluff you sometimes. So it's mainly a bet, I would say, for bluff prevention, and you can do that simply because you have an equity advantage on these type of boards. It's the same for the turn. I'm pretty sure if I had a club, I would definitely need to barrel and would barrel. So the pocket 7 cents I want to actually start on the flop. We can indeed see we can just bet a lot on this board for the reasons that I've explained. We have a huge equity advantage, 65.1%. Bet at 1/3. You can even implement the bigger sizings. Usually at these 3 high card boards, you see this a lot, that basically all sizings are being used. In my opinion, just pick a sizing and start using that. If I would be in a little bit later position, usually I bet a little bit bigger. And if I'm in an earlier position, I'll bet a little bit smaller. I can definitely see half pot. Well, then we were mainly interested for the turn. And on the turn, we were considering betting pocket 7s. I think we mentioned that, or at least I mentioned that I wanted to have a club. So this is definitely an assumption that we're going to check. If we look at 9s and 8s, we can indeed see that having the club is very good. So that reverse set, that it's always a good set. The more down we actually go, the more it seems to matter a little bit less. So the club affects us a little bit less. In general, I am actually a little bit surprised. I would have imagined that the lower pairs would just always barrel. Because basically the higher and you do see a little bit of a trend, I guess. But this is also just because we have those hands at a lower frequency pre-flop. But what I would think is, let's say he has a hand like, he will have more 1-pair hands that have an 8, a 9, 7 in their hand. Like, he would defend Jack 7 suited pre, King 7 suited. He would not defend King 3. King 3 would probably still defend. Jack 3 suited. So basically, if we have 3s, he will have more 1-pairs. So that makes a lower pair a better barrel than a higher-ish pair than, for example, and like pocket 7. But yeah, so pocket 7s, even without a club, is sometimes barreling. I mean, at least I would be barreling with a club. And like I said, if I had a lower pair, I would always barrel. So I don't think I'm butchering this spot that much. We actually still want to bet small quite often. Again, we probably still have the advantage. No, we don't have the advantage anymore. But that's an overall advantage. Like, villain has a lot of the hands in the lower category, and we perform a little bit better in this area. So we still have a reasonable higher equity type advantage because we have a lot of 2-pair sets, straights a little bit more, but we have redraws. So if he has a straight, he probably only, that's kind of basically it. But as soon as the board pairs, we have an advantage again. So in the future, we definitely have an advantage again, and we can already invest in that. Right, so a lot of blocking going on that would have be the sizing. I also would have bet check bet my hand. Let's see if that's a thing. Blank. Checks. I would have now definitely bluffed pocket 7s. That would have been okay. So I'm not too disappointed in terms of in-game how I thought this spot would be played. King 7 off, I think, is normally a fold. It's for the stake. According to the video. This board is actually quite good for him with the wheel connecting. And the board is two-tone, so you definitely need to incorporate some checks. And I think 7 is check fold. King 9. Call. Turn is 4. We could definitely donk on this card quite a lot. For small sizing, that's what I'm going to do. King 7, we're just going to check again. I hope to get the showdown. I think with the 7, we will not be calling a bet, as we block a lot of his bluffs with the 7 and the heart. And on the river, we should never bet this hand. We block way too much of his folding range. And we have a tiny bit of showdown value if he decides to check back a king high. River 9, I think, it's the same drill. We just keep on checking. And we're probably just folding to a bet. Especially 260% pop bet. The ski guy, I think, is the guy from the first hand we played. I think it was pocket 8s. Like, I don't know this guy, but seems a bit fishy, right? The sizing that he took. Oh, actually, I should have made probably 3-bet this. The guy is a recreational. Bet half pot and exactly 62% again on the turn. So I don't really know, guys, are recreational or yet not, because he's repeating the same betting pattern, like min raise, half pot, 2/3 ish. 8-4 again, probably close to a fold. For the sake of playing some pots, I'll open it. Check 3, we can 3-bet, we can call. Bet this time. Then, I mean, because we're recording this. So the RNG is high, guys. The RNG is high. When we record a YouTube video, the RNG. Cannot say this on Twitch because then might people, or might be playing against know that RNG is high, but on YouTube videos, RNG is high. Like cold card here from the fast 14. Usually sign of someone being a recreational player. This board, check 7-9. I'll approach big bet check because it's quite connective. Big bets in 3-bet pots. I think I'll go for a check here. I like that. This guy's been shown to do some weird stuff. This guy, I think, a recreational. So I think checking and giving a recreational and what I assume to be a weaker player as well some options usually makes you money. He thinks about it for quite a while on checks. This is probably, unless he's just doing other things, this could be some sort of a timing tell that he was considering betting. Like I would heavily discount medium hands like 8s, 9s or something from his range. So he's either fast folding now. Yeah, he was just considering maybe turn out a little bluffy. He didn't. Here, I think this hand can play either check or bet. I think both is fine. Cards. He's thinking about it and bets, and I think we have a call. Set. Again, he chooses. This is a very good card for me, especially also in these positions. I think I'm gonna go for a slight overbet here. Like both with the king, queen, and the pocket fives, you could say that, he got the maximum amount of value or something. But you should probably, in general, when you have a lot of, like when you have the range advantage, which you could say that he had in both cases, you should play a strategy. Like how a range advantage makes money is that you can get that you play a strategy which allows you to put all the money in the pot. I think in both cases he did not play a strategy like that. Here, it's a bit close. I think given the way people usually play, I'll go for an overbet. Check. This is a spot where you should quite some strong checking, which I think from what I've seen so far from this player and just my general read, I don't think happens. So that allows us to be a bit more aggressive. I'll check all with the king jack. 7 deuce, obviously opening. So on. But yeah, so in both cases, like pocket fives, you could say that he should have probably tried to get a stack in. So bet a bigger on the turn, jam river. King, queen. If he overbets turn checks behind river. And some rivers even jams. Would have definitely been better. This one, I think it's probably a block, but especially versus recreation, I just don't think it's gonna work, to be honest. Because I think if he had like hands that we're trying to bluff would be like lower king highs and queen highs and jack highs, and they all connect very well on the turn, like queen 10, jack 10, jack 10, jack 10 twice, queen 10, jack queen. So I don't think he has that. So I think he's going to be very 1-pair heavy or 2-pair heavy on that river or straight heavy on that river. Very showdown heavy. Like I would say that we want to value bet quite thin there. And I don't think we want to bluff versus recreational. If we bet, we need to bet probably pretty big, but he has quite a lot of 2 pairs and straights as well on that river. So yeah, I don't like betting small. I just don't think it's going to work often enough. And to bet big, I think he just has too much still strong-ish hands in his range that can play back versus big. So yeah, I'll just give up that one. I think it's a good give up. But yeah, so come back to the story. Definitely valuable. Follow my videos accordingly. So you don't really know what's going on. This one was a recreational. I'll just start off with a small bet. I think. Problem with this exact hand, I'm already looking ahead in terms of hero calling river. You could sometimes bluff with better. So you could also just make an argument for betting a bit bigger with this hand. And this river, I'm gonna bet medium and allow him the chance to raise. If he decides to. He should definitely still be uncapped here. Like he should definitely check ace 4, ace 8 on all streets. The high frequency. So it's not like we river ace deuce, you know, and we can just overbet. I prefer to just use this sizing and still be able to, let's say we check back queen 10 twice. Now the question is, do we re-raise? I don't think so. Pretty close. Ace 4 never. Ace 8 always. Bit close this one. Probably in theory, no. Ace king could definitely check all streets. First river. I think 4s, 8s, queens in theory are going to be in there quite often. I think in practice is a bit more ace 4, ace 8 bets at some street a bit more often maybe. Ace 8 I actually also want to start on the flop, so quite a decent checking frequency still for him. Ace 8, ace 4, definitely hands that he should be checking quite often. 8s and 4s less than 8s. I think these are definitely hands that people could bet a little bit more often, especially on the turn when it becomes very drawy. So I would reduce it some of the time, but as you can see here, pocket 4s, pocket 8s should still be tracking quite a lot. Ace 8 should still be checking quite a lot. Ace 4, I think it's a very intuitive check. Then on the river, let me see how much of the strong hands he should check towards us. If we look at straight should basically always check. It's actually quite interesting. Would have imagined that's more of a block. Set, he should still check quite often, 42.6%. Especially the pocket 8s, which makes a lot of sense. If you slow play, you always want to see which hand you're losing value from. So if we check the hand that he could mainly call with, and he's going to check behind is an 8. So then having 2 8s makes a slow play a bit more. So 8s was definitely a hand that I would be concerned about, but I do think people fast played it a bit more on flop and turn. Then it gets checked towards us. A7 obviously bet. I was debating sizing. I ended up only 3/4ing. Strategy. We bet. Now villain raises. Well, obviously, if he gets there with the value hands that we mentioned, raise. He went somewhere in between. See what do we do for 7. So yeah, it's already closed. Like I mentioned, ace 8 is sometimes calling in theory. And the re-raise sizing also, I was debating. It's a little bit somewhere. I just clicked the button. You know, this kind of things go quite intuitive. I thought it was close. It indeed seems close. But then if you remove some slow plays, then I think it's fine. But I was still quite surprised if you look at the overall strategy. For example, ace king is a hand that should never basically check raise. Ace 4 should basically always bet himself as well. Same with ace 8. Actually, I thought these hands would check a little bit more often. Now obviously if he has ace 4 and ace king more often, then a re-raise becomes quite good. But like I said, that's just at least in theory, you know, I'm not doing anything crazy. And the rest again is just assumptions that you would have to check. You know, if friends, it would, for example, be a hand that I could mark and discuss with other people to see what they think. king, it's a wheel board, which means that we definitely have jams, but we're a bit deeper. Makes me a bit more concerned. We had a spade, I think it's good, but I think in general, ace king, there's just not much else. He called pretty fast as well, which I think reduces like slow plays from his range. I'm just gonna go for the jam here. I think it's the play that I know cannot really be bad. It's very hard to, what do you say, exploit this sort of. So when I'm not really sure, I'll just go for the jam, and he calls with ace jack of diamonds. This is one of the benefits of the jam, but mainly he would, for example, maybe call with like some flush draws, which is very, very good for us. You put him, or at least in theory, you put him in a tough spot with like some pairs. Here for his half pot tap. A recreational with this stack size. I think I'm gonna make a nitty fold. They call a lot of offsuit broadways. So let's say he has queen 9 offsuit or something. That still gives him a gutter. In this spot, for example, a hand that we definitely look to get value from if we have ace king is, for example, ace queen with a spade, flush draws. And it also just, let's say he has jack 10 of diamonds or something. If he just folds it, that's actually quite a good result for us. Because we're out of position, we don't have great playability when we're out of position. This is another board that I will use a different strategic approach depending on if I 3-bet from the small blind or the big blind. Given how the big blind 3-bet range is constructed compared to the small blind, it just gives you a bigger advantage when you're the small blind because you 3-bet linear, very Broadway heavy. So from the small blind, I would just probably range bet this board for small. And from the big blind, I would bet big and check. And I think this hand will make the check twice. Betting this board, you should definitely be careful betting this board too often. I think I have two options. I could raise or call. I'm gonna go for call. He bets 1/3. I think we have to call this, but not too thrilled about it. Now I think here on the turn we probably play overbet check. Usually people bet this board a bit too often on the flop, so I do expect actually to get quite a lot of folds on the turn. And if you think people just over c-bet, I think maybe using a smaller sizing on the turn could also make a lot of sense. And I think on the river I'm just gonna fold. It's very hard for my opponent here to show up with a bluff on the 10. And just given the way I played with this player before, like on the turn I'm already not too. But ace jack 6 here on the flop, definitely a different strategy from the big blind. You see quite a lot of checking going on. That's what I did. And then on the turn, I think kings, there's no incentive betting in general in these type of spots. When you check, you should just do a lot of checking again. That's kind of general guideline. And on the turn, as you can see, basically in position should only use a big sizing. The smaller sizings are basically, from a theoretical point, not really a thing, because there are no incentives to bet medium hands. You're not incentivized to bet jack. Like the king jack that's betting here is clearly bluffing. Okay? So basically you want to bet a good ace or better. So you should big sizing. If he does bet 1/3, like I said, this tree is gonna be quite screwed. We're actually folding the king of clubs a little bit more often than without it. That's probably something to do with the fact that he's bluffing more clubs. So we're blocking a bit more of the bluffing range. You could see here, for example, king jack of clubs sometimes bluffing. So if we then have kings of clubs, he has less bluffs. Probably the same with king 10. So probably kings in general should be a fold here because we block a bit too much of the bluffing range. And in general, like I said, I think I was playing as a player that I think is a bit weaker. So actually, I don't like my call. I think this is donating money. 7 deuce, obviously. There's Mrs. Ski. No? Just 2 raise and take it down with 7 deuce. I already saw him 3-betting small when we had the 10-8 off. I hope he 3-bet small again, which allows us to get in there with 7-9. And again, he does. He's pretty consistent with his sizing. So like I said, I'm a bit confused. It was a recreational or a regular who just uses like some suboptimal type of strategies. So people then, for example, when I play this, sometimes people ask, what do you see that is going wrong? It's just, I would say usually suboptimal strategies being used. Like we already saw a couple of examples of that. I'm gonna 3-bet this. I'm pretty sure it's a recreational player. Or at least somewhat. Normally you have to be a bit careful. You're 150, big blind is deep, offsuit hand. I think I could have also just called in hindsight. King deuce 7. I think I'm just gonna start off with a small bet. King, we don't have the king jack suited blocker. So let's say we have the king of hearts or the king of diamonds. I would lean way more towards betting. If I don't have the queen of clubs, I would also lean more towards betting because there's more hands to get value from. So I think this exact combination, I think, is a fine hand to check. And we're just going to call down. Hope he has something like a low pair, like fours with a club or something that he decides to turn into a bluff. Or ace queen, ace 10. Maybe I had like ace 5 of hearts, stuff like that. And basically for value, he has 3 combinations of 7s. I guess this player could have deuces. So again, he goes for like a medium-ish strategy. Again, I would say a suboptimal strategy. But maybe we're just donating money again. Yes, we're donating money to him again. But it's how can I say? We've donated money to him now 3 times. So obviously people are watching like, hey, maybe I should look up the YouTube channel of Mr. Ski92 because this guy seems to know what he's doing. But I would say in all instances, he would lose money. Like all his hands, I think, lose money from a strategy perspective. And you could also say, yeah, well, it may have maximized against your hand. I think it maximized against the pocket eights because pocket eights, if he uses a quote normal strategy where he overbets the turn, I just fold. Most likely, yes. I would say so most of the time. But I could be convinced from an exploitative perspective that I would still call pocket eights there with the diamond in that very first hand. The ace jack would have definitely called down all the way. In queen, I would have called down all the way, even though we were maybe a little bit deeper. But I would have probably never folded as well. So, yes, he has 246 big blinds right now, but should have had more. And this is kind of the trap as well, right, of poker. You can look at the hands that you won, or you'd be like, hey, I'm winning, so I'm probably playing well. But not getting the maximum out of your strong hands is a very big leap. So yeah, Mrs. Ski92 is watching, free coaching. And sure, from, let's say he, in all scenarios, when he had a bluff, he would be betting bigger, and with his value, he would size a little bit down because, you know, great, from an exploited perspective. That could be the case, especially at lower stakes. You know, there are some spots where you can definitely be exploitative in terms of always having value or always having bluff in certain sizes, but this is something that I would definitely not recommend doing. Unless for maybe a very specific line, but as a general approach, very suboptimal. And you're teaching yourself bad habits that you would have to unlearn when you move up. I think it's better to... This is the recreation. 3-bet. I'll see bet with the 10-9. If the board was rainbow, I think I would c-bet. We could still c-bet. It's a bit close. I think I'm gonna check and see. Like, this is a benefit of recreationals. The faster he now bets or the bigger he now bets, the more I'm gonna lean towards fold. He didn't bet fast, but he did bet big, so I'm gonna fold. Let's say he bet at half pot, I would definitely call. I prefer against recreationals, since the fact that they give you more information about the strength of their hand. I think doing more checking and adjusting accordingly is definitely beneficial. But if the board was rainbow, I would just start off. Just like here, I think just starting off with a C-bet. It's fine. Again, I think a recreational player. It's a bit close what we want to do on the turn. With a heart, I'm going to lean towards barreling. He snap calls. That means usually that he has something. And I don't think there's a lot of mate hands that are going to fold the river. And we have a heart. So I think I'm going to lean towards giving up. So the fact that he has 5-4 offsuit, it kind of... I was like, I think in these type of spots, when you're in position against a recreational, who you know, it's going to be very, very loose versus pre-flop already and versus your 1/3 bet. You should basically play all your hands to try to win the pot, especially with the range that you're opening. So with King Queen, I was considering checking and hero calling river. The problem with that is that recreationals, they bluff ace high on the river. That's a problem. You could then also raise the river. That's definitely an option. But like I said, I decided that the fact that I had a heart, it gives him a little bit more folds on the turn. So our fold equity goes up. And if the river is a heart, we have a little bit more fold equity in the barrel as well. So I think if it didn't have heart, I would just check and raise river. Again, Mr. Ski gonna go for a half bet here in a spot where, in my opinion, he's only incentivized to bet very strong hands and check his medium. And basically, if you think about that, that would mean he should use the bigger sizing. But so far, we've been just handing money. This time he actually bets a little bit bigger than in the previous cases. I think I'm still just gonna call, simply because I think the guy's a recreational player and they can show up with just about anything. It's probably gonna be call and lose quite often. Okay, Queen Jack. Our persistency paid off. Hi guys, Rene aka the Wacko here with a quick Mechanics of Poker 2.0 announcement, because we are currently open to receive 10 new players in our Mechanics of Poker coaching program. In our program, you will get access to 80+ hours of content in which we will explain you all aspects needed in order to become a more successful poker player. Now, one of these, of course, is the technical aspect of the game, in which I'll be explaining you all the mechanics behind poker strategies. We'll be talking about GTO, exploitative play, with an extra focus on the why behind certain strategies and why the population has certain leaks. And to increase your win rate even further, we've recently added a river bluff and bluff catching section, so you can increase your EV when those pots become very big. Our mindset and performance coach Adam Carmichael, he took care of the mental game and performance section of this program, in which he will teach you everything you need to know in order to break through limiting beliefs, better handle your emotions, break free from tilt, and play your A game more consistently. And last but not least, we've added the management and optimization section in the program, in which we will give you various tips and tricks to make it more likely for your poker career to succeed, and how to continuously improve as a poker player. Now, on top of that, this concept is continuously evolving based on feedback and suggestions we get from our community. Next to all this content, you will have access to our exclusive Discord community, monthly live Q&A calls, and one-on-one coaching session in which we are going to be reviewing if you have been implementing the stuff that we teach you in the Mechanics of Poker correctly. So do you think you have what it takes to master the mechanics of poker? And will you take one of the 10 available seats? Go over to mechanicsofpoker.com and apply for the program, and maybe you will get a chance to work with me and Adam and make more progress in your poker career. This is actually a hand and a spot where I'm gonna be a little bit... I think this specific hand can probably make it in big bet. Not entirely sure. I think King 10 heart specifically, it has some benefits. Like on these type of boards, when you're EP, your range is just so strong that you should already start bluffing like some medium pairs. Like I can see some benefits in like king queen maybe betting, especially without a club actually, because king x of clubs is a hand, for example, you could call twice. So if you bet king queen, you could actually sometimes check back the river and be up against a lower king. But then again, king queen obviously beats more king x, so you can just track and win more often. Here with the ace, I'm gonna throw out a donkey. I think it's play. Also check. But yeah, we finally got him. So he was not using the strategy where he would always bet medium. This is actually one of the few hands that I would check this turn with, I think. I'm not really sure if I should check this turn. You could bet a very high frequency here. I'm going to check ace 9, but it's a bit close. 8-9 here. I'm going to go for a check and just see what happens. Again, versus a recreational player on let's come board. I think fine. A bit more checky. That's half pot. A bit tempted to call. You did call. Simply because, again, I'm going to assume again that this guy is a little bit weaker. And then I think versus the lead, he would raise strong hands too often, which leaves his calling range quite weak. I think the deuce is very good for me. In terms of, I'm going to now think it's my sense. In terms of that, I don't think he's going to value bet to thin anymore. And that's going to leave way too much bluffs in his range, like 10 jack with a heart or something. And that point actually did show because he checked back trips. So this is another classic leak of recreationals. So this is also like why they often overbluff. It's simply because they forget to value bet their hands. Like a 5 here is probably worth an overbet. So I would have definitely hero called. Which, if he checks back 5, again confirms by side to hero call. This one's a bit dicey. I think I'm gonna check it down. I should probably bluff, but I feel like this line is very ace-high heavy. And if he has trash, basically all the trash will have a 5 or a 7. I will indeed sometimes lose against like stupid 9 high or something, but yeah, I feel like this is more likely. I feel like we should either start firing on the flop. Yeah, or the way the board run out, I'll just check it down. But I could be convinced otherwise. For example, on the river to just overbet. Expect to win money. It's also a bit similar to the king jack earlier, where I think if we want to get a fold, we should probably bet quite big. Maybe I should just bet big. Definitely an option. We got a call, pocket threes. I think the jack 8-8 is high enough that it starts to favor me, that I can just bet a lot. Unlike the 7-7-4 or something earlier. I think pocket threes has no business betting. If you're betting here, I think it's definitely a mistake. Then it's quite a bad card in terms of connecting with his floating range. 7-9, queen 9, stuff like that. 10. On the river, you should then be turning, let's say as king queen, you should definitely turn it into a bluff. Same with maybe like some ace highs. Probably you should turn like some ace highs into a bluff. I usually see players not turning ace high into a bluff here. We have a spade, which is not great. A threes, it's very close. If I didn't have a spade, I would definitely call here. And probably we should still call here. The jack 8, actually on the flop, I saw a bit more checks than I would probably do. I thought this board was, it is very good for us. So it's not usually when you have quite an advantage as we have here. If you do bet a little bit more often, it's not really a big deal. On the turn, I was mentioning don't barrel pocket threes. Let's see if that's correct. That's correct. We're never betting again with these low pairs. And on the river, villain should indeed bluff a lot of ace highs, a lot of king highs. So if you look at if he has air on the river, which is quite often, he should bluff it very often. So that's again something that I would always look at. should bluff a lot of ace highs. So if you should already bluff a lot of ace highs, that already made me feel like, not too easy to overbluff. Like if you're ace highs is probably the hand that people should start overbluffing with if you want to over. And here we can see the threes. Indeed, the spade, like I mentioned in game with these low pairs, having a spade is just not great. And like I said, I don't know how often people bluff ace high, but I intuitively thought not that often, so that's why I folded, which I think is good in both theory and practice. Very low frequency. King, queen. It seems like a good hand to barrel. We block some of the 5x, which is good. This board, I think I'm gonna approach big bet check again. I think starting with it over pot. Small nuance here, like it's queen 9-6, whereas if it's queen 10-6, so your ace jacks and your ace kings start to connect, that's definitely a difference. I'm going to actually check this hand. Like I got a cold call. It's a hand that I definitely don't want to bet and get raised with. And we can just always check call. I think also if we check, we call and the turn is a king or an ace, we can quite credibly represent that. Here are the kings. A bit tempted to bet because the turn connects quite a lot of hands for his range. Probably doesn't have a king. I feel like blocking is probably the best option, because I feel like he could now sometimes call me with a 9, which is good. He could raise ace jack, ace queen. He's always going to raise a straight, and then we can just get it in. Here, open ender. Jamming here. Yeah, we would have probably got the money in anyway. Yeah, we have 9 plus. Yeah, just by those odds, we actually make it. But if someone has the nut flush draw, that would not be great. Could be that someone has a set, so that means the 10 space. Probably close. Let's gamble, guys. I was even winning against him. But he indeed had a set, something that I was a little bit afraid of. So in this example, we had 26. We needed 27, so we missed 1%. I'm willing to take a gamble for this for YouTube with a 1% disadvantage there. It's 5-8. Two-tone, the check. Not bet this board too often. Queen 8. We have an easy caller on the turn. With extra equity and unblocking like the bluffs. Seems like probably my prime candidates to be calling the turn bet with. He now insta checks the river. It's bad news, guys. I feel like betting small because it's gonna fold anyway. But on the other side, I think when he check, like overbet is best. I feel like a lot of the range is gonna insta check is going to be a hand that's gonna fold, so it doesn't really matter. Ace jack. I feel like this is a spot where people usually bet a bit too much ace x. So I feel like he's gonna have ace jack too often, especially with the timing. And basically, if he just has ace jack or air, then you should just go all in. Badly played, Wacko. Should have just gone all in. But I think king 8 of hearts. The middle pair. He should not be betting turn up. Okay. You're gonna do something with this hand, maybe check raise or something. Yeah. Actually, I don't hate it. Eh. Pocket threes. We're a bit deeper. Raise a bit smaller. Let's throw out a call for the real. Perfect. I don't think. Yeah. But I think the river. This is so again. This is another mistake. Often see at lower stakes. The timing there. He's just giving it away. That's a very big mistake by him. Turn. I think we can just block almost range and play from there. When I say play from there, it just means all my strong hands are also going to go in the block. Because let's say he has a jack. If we play block, he's going to raise. And then basically from there, we can just re-raise. Here versus min bet. I'm just going to call and try to keep him. Let him keep doing his thing. Here at the pocket trees, I'm just going to fold. Like I said, I'm going to do this with basically my whole range. So I'll also have a 6. I'll have a jack. I'll have some better hands. Board is paired. So if you don't want to have a spade when the board is paired. So he first bets min on the flop. Saying that he's a bit weakish. Now he decides to bomb it. At least for now. Guy so far has been aggressive side. But a worse hand than me, buddy. How did I say this in expensive English? Very nonsensical line. Is that the word? That it doesn't make any sense. Nonsensical. So a little donkey in the 4-7-8. Quite a good board for me. Now and in the future. Turn. You can use various strategies. I will just continue blocking here. But you could definitely build overbet as well. Here is a recreational, I believe. At least I haven't checked recreational. I like to check a lot towards recreationals. The river, we should now definitely start mixing it up. It's very hard for us to show up with a bluff here, I would say. 10. Get a jack 9. Gonna go for it. That's a bit greedy. The 8-7-4. We drew a little donkey. Wizard. It's a little bit of a chicken in my opinion. Only dunk betting 8%. That's very passive poker. It's Jack 5, my exact hand. I think I had clubs, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, never dunking. Again, a little bit of a chicken play. So I did actually go for the dunk. And we can indeed see that in position. Not really sure. I had another dunk bet spot with 5 deuce, but I'm reviewing these hands afterwards. I'm not sure if that was before or this one, but I think there I mentioned that, especially I think that player was a weaker player on the 5 deuce hand. If to come or already went, so you know. And I expected him, or expected in general people, to often raise a bit too much, like top pair, good kicker, and overpair type of hands. So as soon as he calls the turn 4, you would remove some of the stronger hands. I think it leaves the range very unprotected, and I think just bet again basically with a lot of hands in our range. I had the Jack 5. It's actually very out of line to be playing Jack 5 the way I did, because I think I blocked again. Like even Jack 5 of hearts, but to be fair, I would rather have Jack 5 of clubs as played than Jack 5 of hearts. So he calls again, and the river is a 6, and there I think, yeah, we do definitely need to start splitting. Obviously, an 8 is very incentivized to bet small, but there's also a lot of very strong hands in our range, like full houses, straights, that want to bet a little bit bigger. Okay. We look at Jack 5. In a vacuum, it's worth a half pot. Like in general, the 5 straight. It's a bit, yeah, like 150 is the main bet sizing, which is bet sizing I chose. So I think that's a fine play by me. 9-10 clearly wants to bet big, could sometimes even go for a check raise. But I guess 9-10 likes to bet a bit more because if you have a 9 and a 10, he has less bluffs because his bluffs, I guess, should come from Jack 9, 10 Jack. And a bit more likely that he has a 7, a 4, an 8, 6. So therefore, you should probably bet 10-9 more often. Then if you have like some of the hands that I just mentioned, as you can see here, like 7, 6s are definitely hands to go for the check with and check raise because you will have more bluffs with the Jack 9, the 10 Jack than if we have 9-10. And he will have less 7x and 6x because of the hands that we have. Okay, so we checked twice here towards the recreational player. And he now bombs it. The question is, do we raise? So just hope he doesn't have pocket. But if he has pocket fours, guys, we have outs. No worries there. I feel like this beats. Yeah, I mean, I just want, if he has 10-4, which you could have, like 2 combos. He has 5-4. Those are already more combos than pocket fours, so we're going to be ahead more often than not. And I feel like these are like mid-bottom type-ish pairs. And I feel like there's just so many action killers on the river that there's a recreational there. We're just forced to raise. 4-way with all recreationals, super deep, not flush draw potential, definitely in. Like, because this guy's a recreational as well, I would call, let's say this was not a recreational, I would definitely lean a bit more towards square. I think it's fine. Check 10, never think. I'm gonna go for a check. Play it a bit more blue line-ish. You could definitely bet as well, that's perfectly fine. Only downside is that sometimes you'll get raised. Let's say you bet, he raises and he has a low flush draw, you might fold, and obviously, you know, your draw becomes a bit more expensive. You don't really fold out that much better ace-x anyway, because ace-10 and ace-jack are never folding, so only ace-9. I think this is a fine way to play my hand. Obviously folding the river. For obvious reasons. The fact that I had nothing, or as they say in Portuguese, porra nenhuma coisa, for the Portuguese Brazilian followers. Check 10 offsuits. You check her with the ace-9. This could be a recreational, so I'm gonna call 9-3. Call it over. Flip a pair. Don't bomb it. You know. Half pot with some backdoor bluff with some equity potential. 6 and an 8. Is ace-8. Again, a great example of he has top pair, top kicker on the turn, 2 pair. And you know, he didn't really get a lot of money out of his hand. But by him. Here. Gonna raise. He went half pot, 2/3. Not necessarily. If he bet half pot, I think we have to basically continue. But I think recreationals there, they're just gonna have too much hands like 10 jack, jack queen, queen 10 type of stuff in their range. You could then either call. You can also raise. I think raising makes sense simply because on a lot of rivers, it's going to be very hard for us to maneuver. Obviously, we can deny some equity. I think also on this board, ace-6, for example, is a hand that he could call with. Ace-4, flush draws. So we get some dim value. It denies like some bluffability from him. Like, for example, let's say we have Jack 7 or something. First of all, you know, the bluffs that he has in his range are going to have way less equity. This guy is a recreation. It's a recreational. Here, check. Bets. I think we have an easy call versus our Brazilian friend. Very big 4-bet. And on the river, we will reevaluate the situation. But I don't think we're going to bomb. I think then we're going to start wrapping it up. Probably open the 7 deuce if it gets folded to me. Gonna start wrapping it up. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Did. You could do either way with this hand. I'll go for a bet. I don't mind a check either. If you like this video, guys, tell me in the comments down below why you liked it. If you disagreed with any of the plays, feel free to start a discussion in the comment section. Obviously, like this video if you like dunk bets. If you like dunk bets, like this video. That's going to be my motto. He raises, we have, I think we have an open ender, but I have to double check. In theory, you could probably re-raise his hand. Let me see, 7, 9, 10. But I feel like in practice, the raising range is a bit too strong. So I would, if I want to raise, I would need a bit more of a stronger hand. Let's say 4, 7, 4, 5. Like at least blocking like some of the value. But in theory, here people should do quite a lot of slow playing, not raise too many overpairs. So when people do raise too much random 8x, for example, and overpairs and all that stuff, I think the correct approach is to, first of all, fast play a lot of your value here in the flop. And your bluffs then should contain a bit more equity because you're bluffing into a stronger range. So 5 deuce I don't think makes it. But yeah, if you like Donkey Donkeys, like this video. If you feel a little bit stuck in your poker career, then me and Adam, we've constructed the most complete coaching program on the market. The Mechanics of Poker coaching program. We're now accepting new students. I think applications close somewhere in the first week of May. So depending on when you see this, you can still enter yes or no. You can apply. Description down below. We'll teach you all that good stuff. Both from technical, but also from mental game and performance perspective. I think quite an interesting spot. Should probably use a lot of 5x to bluff up. Probably even go bigger. So he should probably use a lot of 5x to already bluff on the flop, so I'm not really too worried about that. Probably if his ace jack or bet, he would have already betted somewhere. So I feel like this bet is just free rolling. If he folds an ace, it's great. Maybe we should bet a little bit bigger. Queen 9, Queen 4, 7. I'll bet this hand 50-50. Fold a check. Again, small nuance difference. I think earlier in the video it was Queen 9-6 in the 3-bet pot. Queen 4-7 is definitely different than Queen A3. Even though people might treat it sort of the same. I think now we can probably overbet. I'll call here the 3-bet pocket eights. I think I'm gonna check behind. I think with a spade we could probably just get it in. Now on the river, like block is probably the play. And diamond. Now we should definitely bet here. Eights, I feel like. Gems, we just have too much. We have enough equity that we can just call it off. Just some denial. Right. To go with it. But definitely not bet fives. Fives not good enough to go with it, and then you definitely don't want to get check raised. This is going to be interesting if he raises. We block a lot of his flushes, like low queen X that he could check back. He could definitely bluff us with a hand like ace 10 with a diamond, king 10 with a diamond. What I was saying. Like a lot of players only focus maybe on like the technical aspect, but in my opinion, the mental game, the performance aspect is what's going to determine how much of that technical knowledge you can put on the table. So it's a very important aspect. So you feel like your poker career just a little bit of a boost, don't hesitate, slide down below. Me and Adam look forward to start coaching you. I think this hand I'm gonna go bet. Very low. That look on your face when you say that you want to go bet, but then you actually make a hand and then you can decide what's the best option. So if I'm gonna go for a check, but it's nice. Close bet. Like we lose some value here versus a hand like king queen, king jack, but it doesn't really matter. I'm a little bit afraid though to lose value from an ace. I'm gonna do something really fishy. This hand has quite a lot of dilemmas. This hand has quite a lot. So, like you lose value from, let's say, as jacks, king queen, king jack, jack queen. There's always hands that we're blocking with king jack, so that's good. River close. Chicken out. 3-4 offsuit. I'll try this, guys. The reason I check jam the turn is because, like I said, we already concluded that recreationals, they forget to value bet. So I was afraid that he would have quite a lot of hands like ace jack or just an ace, and we'll check that behind the river. Now, obviously, we then now lose value from bluffs. His main bluffs there should probably be low pocket pairs. So then sort of the equation is, well, how often do we now, with a gem, how often do we now get extra money out of 10, an ace? Obviously, for example, a 10. There can be some carry cards for him on the river that he might even check back a 10 on the river. So on one side, we want to slow play. The downside, obviously, is that he's now going to fold his bluffs. If he folds a flush draw, that's actually quite okay. We had a similar spot earlier with a pair. I think I would have liked to see myself call that pair a little bit earlier. This one is a bit close, but I'm going to go for time. These type of things, if this is, for example, a guy you play against a lot and you see him do this more often, it's quite easy to counter. If he does this too aggressively, there's obviously you're going to hero call more, but I think you can also start checking a little bit more strong hands on the turn. This is a capped line. Some people like to attack. But yeah, to come back to my king jack hand. So yeah, it has, just like any other poker hand, both lines has ups and downs. I think it was a similar spot earlier with king queen. Unlike the jack 3-3-4 or something it was, I believe, versus the recreational player. Bet has upsides, check has downsides. I think both options are fine. So, wrapping up another Play and Explain, another poker instructional videos. we're closing up another poker instructional video. Like you've seen many who say it can go either way. Yeah. Well, some things can go either way, other things can't. Again, if you want me and Adam to teach you, apply to the Mechanics of Poker program. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys video.